Om Sadashiva-Samarambam
Shankaracharya-madhyamam Acharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam
Om
Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karuvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamam
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Call and repeat. Vasudevendra Yogendram Nattva Jnanam Pradam Gurum.
Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnanam Padam Gurum
Mumukshunam hitartaya Tattva Bodho Vidiyate.
Mumukshunam hitarthaya Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate.
Thank you. I hope everyone had a good week.
Yes, not bad.
So let's start. So we finished one chapter. Congratulations. We finished the topic of Adhikari, one that is one who is qualified to receive Atma Jnanam. That is one who has sadhana chatushtaya or has chitta shuddhi. Now, these terms you should all know really well because like we spoke about, the English translation does not fully convey like in one word. Let me just mute everyone. So the English translation, I was saying, does not fully convey what the Sanskrit terms can. And often they can also, the simple English translation can also be misleading, right? Just how when we were talking about Vairagyam and we said it's dispassion, it can often sound very cold, like, like a yogi cannot love, which is not what it means. So it's important to understand what Vairagyam means, the word by itself, and have that word in your vocabulary. Similarly, when I tell you Viveka, you shouldn't, I will no longer use the word discrimination. I will just say Viveka, and you should immediately recall that Viveka means Nitya Anitya Viveka. It's the discrimination between Nityam, what is eternal, and Anityam, what is impermanent. That Nityam is only Brahman and everything else is Anityam. All this understanding should be there for you when I say the word Viveka. And that is exactly the reason we're doing a text like Tattva Bodha before you do any other text. And that is why so many of us keep coming back to this text to revise it again and again. Over time, you should build your own glossary of these Vedantic terms to keep referring back to. So please do keep revising your notes, listen to all these classes once more, write down detailed notes, start making your own Vedanta glossary, and that's how you'll have a smoother time in this inquiry. So we concluded the first chapter by talking of how if one doesn't have Chitta Shuddhi, now I hope you know what that means, the way to achieve Chitta Shuddhi is through Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, which all these we will cover in a lot of detail in Bhagavad Gita, all these different paths of yoga. And through all these other paths of yoga, one gets Jnana Yogyata, one gets this Chitta Shuddhi. then they can receive jnanam through jnana yoga. So now, what if many of us say we don't yet have this sadhana chatushtaya, we don't have this chitta shuddhi? Then what is the use of sitting and listening to jnanam at this point? The point is this process of listening right now, even if you do not have sadhana chatushtaya, will give you chitta shuddhi itself. So right now, for anyone who doesn't yet have this chitta shuddhi, even the shravanam process is actually karma yoga, because it's giving you chitta shuddhi. Once you have full chitta shuddhi, then shravanam will be jnana yoga for you. So till that point, even this is karma yoga. So there is no effort which is wasted by doing this shravanam right now. It can only help you in that process. So now entering the second part of Tattva Bodha, we will chant. अथ व्यष्टि विचारः
अथ व्यष्टि विचारः
तत्त्वविवेकः कः
तत्त्वविवेकः
आत्मा सत्यम्
आत्मा
सत्यं
तदन्यत् सर्वं मिथ्येति
तदन्यत् सर्वं मिथ्येयि
आत्मा कः
आत्मा कः
स्थूलसूक्ष्म
स्थूलसूक्ष्म
कारणशरीराद्
शरीरं
व्यतिरिक्तः
व्यतिरिक्तः
पञ्चकोशातीतः सन्
पञ्चकोशातीतः सन्
अवस्थात्रयसाक्षी
अवस्थात्रयसाक्षी
सच्चिदानन्दरूपः सन्
सच्चिदानन्दरूपः सन्
यतिष्ठति
यतिष्ठति
सः आत्मा.
सः आत्मा.
Let's cover this part and we'll come back to the chanting. So now we've entered the analysis. Now, if you remember, when we spoke about what are the things that Vedantic texts usually cover, we talked about how most of them will talk about the nature of the jiva, that the individual, and the nature of Ishvara, the entirety. And then we will come to the connection between the two. So we're right now at that first part where we're doing Vyashti Vichara. Vyashti Vichara being the analysis of the microcosm. Just muting you all again. Yeah. Analysis of the microcosm, the analysis of the jiva. That's what this chapter 2 is about. And the student is asking, what is Tattva Viveka? So Tattva Viveka is actually the same as Tattva Bodha. The teacher gives a very short answer here, which he himself will elaborate later, presenting what he wants to teach in a nutshell or just later on. This kind of presenting what one wants to teach in a nutshell is called Sangraha Vyakyam or Sutra Vyakyam. So here he says, Atma is Satyam and everything else is Mithya. This firm conviction is called Tattva Viveka. Now, you would have noticed we introduced actually 3 more technical terms here and 1 implicitly. So 4 technical terms are being introduced, which is again very important for you to now understand. We will go into it in a lot of detail, and thereafter you have to use only the Sanskrit terms for these words. So we will now understand what is Atma and the unasked question. Therefore, what is Anatma then? And what is Satyam? And what is Mithya? So these terms now we are all aiming to understand. Now, Atma. So every mortal individual has an inner essence that is immortal, which is perhaps why we as humans are always chasing immortality, because somewhere we know that that is our inner essence, but we are mistakenly trying to find that immortality in this mortal body. So coming back to our immortal essence, so we all have an imperishable immortal essence which is not visible to the ordinary eyes. It's not this flesh and bones in front of you. It is not perceivable to any other senses of perception either. It cannot be experienced. It's aprameya, inexperienceable. So this immortal, invisible, inner essence, that is Atma. You can remember it as the triple I, immortal, invisible, inner essence. And the Satyam, and this Atma is what is Satyam, what is the truth, and Mithya, which we will now explain. These are very interconnected. Right, so right now I'm holding in my hand an object made of clay. Right, one could call it a pot. I could use it to put some pens in it, put some flowers in it perhaps. You know, it can hold a bunch of things. But when we inquire into the truth of this pot, we will make a surprising discovery that there is no substance called pot at all. The pot is not a substantiable, tangible entity. Vedanta says that this is but a piece of clay. This is just clay alone. Clay is the only thing I'm touching right now. It is the only thing which has any weight. And whatever I feel, whatever it's holding, it all belongs to the clay alone. A potter could melt this clay and make it into a plate. He could make it into a spoon. So the pot actually exists in our mind because we don't inquire. The question then is, what is the pot? The pot is basically just the name which is given to the clay itself. And why do we give it this new name? Because it's been given a new form, it's been given a particular function. And to hence know what this name and new form is, we give it a name just to associate. So basically in Sanskrit, we call this Nama Rupa. The name, Nama and Rupa, form. So by giving the substance a new Nama Rupa, we call it pot. So, but the pot itself is non-substantial. It does not have any substance. And there can be, for this one substance clay, there can be multiple non-substantial Namarupas. There can be plates, spoons, anything. Now that is the first principle. The non-substantial Namarupa can be many, anekam, but the substance is only one, ekam. So the satyam is ekam, one, and mithya is anekam, multiple. The second principle is that this non-substantial Namarupa, the spot, cannot independently exist without the substance, right? If I tell you, take out all the clay from this pot, but still give me the pot, would that be possible? It would not, because nothing exists but clay in my hand right now. So you cannot have a pot without the clay. That is the second principle to understand, that this non-substantial Namarupa can never exist independently without the substance. But that is not so with the clay. The clay can have an independent, has an independent existence. Now, this basically the clay itself is immortal in this, of course, limited example compared to the pot or the plates, and it is independent and it is unchanging. Again, this is the Satyam, Atma, and all these other Namarupas are what we call Mithya, the Anatma. And the third principle is now this clear pot could break, it could be melted down, and but then the clay will still exist. But before this pot was made, the clay still existed, right? So the clay existed before, during, and after the pottery objects were made. It is Nityam. So in this example, again, Nityam being eternal versus the objects which are Anityam, impermanent. That is the third principle. So your Atma is Nityam and Anatma is Anityam. And the last principle is the clay alone exists by itself. The clay has an independent existence, unborrowed existence. And this we call Satyam, right? So this independent existence, unborrowed existence, again belongs only to the Atma. And for the Anatma, there is only a dependent existence. But in chapter 2, verse 16 of Bhagavad Gita, the concept of Satyam and Mithya will be introduced in a lot of detail once again. So you should remember these terms for when that comes up. What is Satyam? What is Mithya? What is Atma? What is Anatma? Right? But we will go into more details then. Right now, the Tattva Bodha is just giving you a broad overview of what this means. So there will always, while Atma has an independent existence, we say it's not perceivable to the senses. So only in the presence of an Atma object, which acts as a reflecting medium, can this Atma be experienced as a reflected consciousness. That is important to understand. Coming to the first brief explanation which the author gives of what is Atma. He says, the student is asking, Atma kaha? And the reply comes, quite an elaborate, but a reply which is not telling you a lot actually, is he says it's that which is other than Stula, Sukshma, and Karana Sharira, which is beyond the 5 sheaths, which is the witness of the 3 states of awareness, which is the nature of Sat Chit Ananda, is Atma. So for those of you new to Vedanta, I probably used a whole bunch of terms which you don't yet know, which is fine. And that's what this text is for. We will go into all of them in a lot of detail right now. So the author is basically dividing Anatma into 3 groups. These dividing them into Shareera Trayam, the 3 bodies. Shareera means body and Trayam is 3. The 3 bodies, which is Stula Shareeram, the physical body, Sukshma Shareeram, the subtle body, and Karana Shareeram, the causal body, the 3 bodies. And he's talking about Kosha Panchakam, the 5-fold layers of the human personality. And we will go into the detail of what are these Panchakoshas a little further in this text right now. He says Atitaha. So it is beyond, transcending the Panchakoshas, which namely just are, don't worry about it too much right now, but just to list them off, it's Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. So these are the 5 koshas which we will discuss in detail again. And he says it is Avastha Trayam Sakshi. So it is the Sakshi, the witness of the 3 avasthas, the 3 states of experience. And of course, the witness is different from what it is witnessing. Again, we will understand this more. So he's basically explaining Anatma into these 3 groups, the 3 Shareeratrayam plus the 3 states of awareness plus the 5 koshas. So total 11 components, which will be elaborated very soon. So what's happening here is we often use 3 kinds of descriptions to understand Atma. So one is what we call the Swarupa Lakshanam, the nature or the intrinsic property of something. Like heat belongs to the fire, right? Heat is an intrinsic nature of fire, right? The fire can never be cold. So this intrinsic nature of Atma is what this last part of this description says, which is Sat Chit Ananda. That is the intrinsic nature of Atma. And there is, that is what we call a Swarupa Lakshanam. Then Vedanta also uses something called Tatastha Lakshanam. Tata is basically means like the bank of a river, literally, but it basically refers to a secondary or a temporary feature. Like if I tell you, if you're coming to visit me in my home, and I say all the rows of houses are the same, and I tell you my house is the one with the red car parked outside. So the house would still be the same if the car leaves, but that is a temporary feature. There is a red car parked outside. That is the Tatastha Lakshanam. So we will use a lot of these to explain Atma. And the last type Vedanta uses is Vivartaka Lakshanam, which is saying it is distinct from all these. An explanation of something by telling you that which it is not. So all these 11 elements that we are discussing right now, the 3 bodies, the 3 avasthas, and the 5 sheets, that is not Atma. That is anatma. And it is, Vedanta often uses this method of negation, neti neti, to tell you what actually you are not, to arrive at what you are. And why is this important? This is important because all these things are what we are perceiving right now. So it is easy to confuse them as the truth with the truth. So it's like trying to explain what is electricity. I could tell you it runs all these electrical devices like fans and lights and air conditionings. But if you don't know what these electrical devices actually are, you won't understand. So if you just look at the fan, and I'm trying, you can say, oh, is that electricity? But I'll have to tell you, no, it's not these wings that you're looking at. It's not the wires attached to the fan. It's something else. So I have to first negate what all it is not to get you to where the understanding of what is electricity. So that is what we are doing right now. So let's chant the next para also. Stula Shareeram Kim
Stula Shareeram Kim
Panchikritam
Panchikritam
Panchamahabhutaikritam
Panchamahabhutaih Kritam
Satkarmajanyam
Tatkarmajanyam
Sukhadukkadi
Sukhadukkadi
Bhogayatanam
Bhogayatanam
Shareeram
Shareeram
Asti Jayate
Asti Jayate
Vardate Viparinamate
Vardate Viparinamate
Apakshiyate
Apakshiyate
Vinashyatiti
Vinashyati
Shadvikaravadate
Shadvikara Etat
Stula Shareeram.
Stula Shareeram.
So it says Panchikrita Panchamahabhutaihi. So he's talking about, in this whole prose, the teacher is giving an elaborate explanation, talking of the cause of the Stula Shareeram, the function of the Stula Shareeram, and the nature of the Stula Shareeram, and also the condition. So we'll go into each of these one by one. In English, the Stula Shareeram is basically translated as the gross body or the physical body. Gross meaning some indriya gochara, which is perceptible to the senses. It has a perceivable feature, right? So, and then when he's talking about Panchikritam, what he's talking about is the causes. So everything in existence that we see, that is perceived, has two kinds of causes. One that we call Samanya Karanam, the general cause, which is same for everything which is there in existence, be it the human body, the plant body, or the animal body. They're all made of the same elements, the same 5 elements that we will talk about right now. It's these 5 elements that Vedanta will tell you is Akasha, space, Vayu, air, Agni, fire, Jalam, water, and Prithvi, earth. Now, the tangible part of the body is Prithvi. So, from the earth, we get food, and so we get all these vegetations, which becomes food if you're a vegetarian, and maybe, or an animals eat it, and if you're a non-vegetarian, maybe you get your food from somewhere from that as well. But basically, it all comes from the earth, and that is what finally forms the body. So it's easy to observe the earth element in this. And we all know the body has water. It has 70% water, in fact, often determining the shape of this body. And the Agni principle, the fire principle, is of course evident again in the body. All the living bodies have to maintain a certain temperature, right? If it has to maintain something between about 98.6 degrees Celsius approximately. You can probably survive up to a few degrees more, but not more than that. So we all know that dead bodies, that's why, are cold. They no longer have any life in them. It is also evident in the digestive fire, right? And then we have Vayu, which is air, and this, of course, is very evident in the air we breathe, the same air which circulates and runs all these functions in our bodies. And Akasha, which is the space element. It's not a negative feature, it's a positive feature. So there is a lot of space inside my body, and there is a certain space that this body is currently occupying. Again, this is evident, like when the stomach is empty, we feel hungry. So this is again this is the subtlest of the 5 elements, but this is also what goes into making the body. So these 5 elements, which go through the process of, it says Panchikrita, it goes through a process, which we will explain. That's what makes up the physical body. The 5 elements, after grossification, give you the physical body. That's what it means by Panchikrita Panchamahabhutaihi, from the 5 elements which go through the process of grossification, called Panchikrita. And so that is the Samanya Karanam of this body, the general cause. But there is, we can also call this the Upadana Karanam, which is the material cause, like the clay which has gone into making this pot. I mean, sorry, not in the example of, in the sense of what we used it earlier, but in the terms of just the substance which has gone into the making, right? So then there is also another cause which goes into making of these bodies, which is why I look different from Madhavi or Neetu on the screen, or some of the men in the class right now. So I have a female body, some of you have a male body. I was born in a certain place to certain kind of parents. I had a certain education. I had certain particular, very specific experiences which came my way because of. So most people in India would have probably heard, right? Because of your karma. You say this is all because of my karma, and we all possibly believe it to an extent. So we will, Vedanta will go into a lot of detail exactly about what is this karma. So the Vishesha Karanam that the author talks about in this, it says, Sat Karma Janyam, born out of good karma. So why good? Because having a human birth itself requires a certain amount of good karma. It is considered a superior birth than an animal birth or a plant birth, in the sense that, or actually even a Devata birth. The reason being, a human birth is the only one where you can get liberation. And for that reason, it is called a superior birth. So it requires a certain amount of good karma to be able to come to a human birth at all, and thereby have an opportunity to gain jnana and get liberation. So we will elaborate what is karma exactly, what is good karma that we say is punyam, what is bad karma, papam, what is previous births, what is the law of karma, later in Tattva Bodha itself. So we won't take any questions relating too much to that right now, because we will come to it very soon. Right? But these karmas is what will determine what kind of body you will get. And the raw material is all the same. It's the Panchamahabhuta. But the output is what changes, not just the physical output, but all these other things that we talk about, your circumstances in life, etc. And this is this law of karma, which gives you the specific body and specific conditions in your life. This is called the nimitta karanam, the intelligent cause. So I gave you two words. It's called Vishesha Karanam, which means specific cause, which is the same also as Nimitta Karanam, the intelligent cause. So the potter who chooses to make this clay into a pot or a plate, that is the intelligent cause, the design which goes into it. And right, so that's to do with the causes. And then we will come to, in the phrase, then the author says, ayatanam. So we're now coming to what is the function of this physical body. Ayatanam means an abode. And it is to be understood that the physical body is only a vehicle that we have rented out for transactions in this world. We have used karma to pay as rent and got this one body. And we've been given, it's going to be a vehicle for Bodha. Bodha means experience of Sukha, Dukkha, Adi. So he says it will be the vehicle for experiencing Sukham, which is pleasurable experiences, Dukkham, the not so pleasurable experiences. Adi simply means etc. So here he's referring to the mixed experiences. Say you have two kids and one scored 100% in the math exam and the other failed. So a mixed experience. So life gives you all these three. So it is, this body is supposed to be, is but not supposed to be. We all know it, but we don't want to accept it, that this body is but a temporary abode for us, for which, using which we interact with the world and have all these experiences. While knowing the temporary, impermanent nature of this body, we still cling to the body and we refuse to accept it. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita will actually give you several strong examples, but one of the first thing he will say is that this body is actually no different from clothes that you wear, that you discard after you've used them and put on a new pair of clothes. That's what happens at rebirth. You discard this body at death and you get a new pair. Then this brings us to what is the nature of the body. The author says, Vikaravat etat Stula Shareeram. This body is subject to constant change or modifications. Every second, thousands of cells are dying and new cells are being produced. So there is actually a myth which says every 7 years, all the cells in your body are completely replaced. It's not exactly true because there are certain cells which are changing much more slowly than the others. But it is true that, every few years, your cells that this body has are completely different. So when you think, when you look in the mirror and say, this is me, what are you really referring to? Think of yourself as a baby, as a toddler, as a teenager, as the adult who's sitting in class right now. What in that body has actually remained the same? Right? It's not just the physical features, even in terms of your thoughts, in terms of your personality. Certain aspects certainly would have carried over, but a lot of it would have changed. So when you think this is me, what exactly are you referring to? That is what needs to be inquired into further. The nature of this body is that it is Shad Vikara, which is Shad is 6, and Vikaravat is changes, modifications. It's subject to 6 particular changes. First is Asti, which is potential existence, the fetal existence when it comes into being. And the next one is Jayate, when the body is manifested. This is the birth. Vardate is the third change, which is growth, like from the time you were born to when you become a full adult, reach that full height. That is Vardate, the growth stage. And at some point we reach our full height and a certain amount of weight, but then there's still changes. Viparyamate. So these are the changes, the modifications the body continues to go through after the growth stage. And then apakshiyate, which is decay. At some point, the body will decay, the cells will start to dry, the wrinkles will form, the hair will turn gray. This is apakshiyate, until finally vinashyate, the destruction or the death of the physical body. So these are the 6 changes that anybody goes through. This is basically the analysis of the anatomy of Atma and the analysis of the Atma that we're going through right now. So when we identify and cling to this body, ask and be aware of the mortality of this body. So if there is a desire for immortality, then that doesn't exist in this body. We need to look elsewhere. We need to look into our true nature to discover that immortality, that inner essence. So we will explain all this more. So we can take some questions now, if any are there. No questions? Was it too fast, this class, or it was okay?
I guess there is a lot to absorb.
Yeah, and too many terms. So
Right. Sure.
Yeah, assimilation will take time, it's kind of just too much happening, You're trying to self-analyze things and wondering where you are and what you've been. So I guess one will have to go through this class immediately, to take down deeper notes.
Yeah. So I know this probably was full of a lot of facts, but if anyone feels the pace is too fast, we can also slow down some more. So you're welcome to give feedback on that. But for sure, there is a lot, and this is meant to be listened to again and again.
I guess when terms are like too many, so we can slow a little bit down. Yeah, because it's absorption of terms, the deeper meaning is like takes some time. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So
I have a question, Swannaji.
sure, Gaurav, 1 second, just to finish answering.
Yeah, please.
So, of course, go through the recording again, and the important terms that you must absolutely know are the ones which are mentioned in the text itself. When it's saying Atma kaha, and Stula Shareeram, Sukshma Shareeram. So all these terms that are mentioned in the text itself, one must absolutely know. Right. There's some extra information probably. These are all things we need to know, and we will know at some point, but the key terms, make sure it's engraved in your memory. Right. But I could also slow down a little more. Gaurav, yes.
Spannaji, since you said this body is a board, I wanted to know, what is the purpose of Atma going into different bodies and making them work in a certain way so that it ultimately goes back and meet the Paramatma? Or, this is how it's like, what is the purpose of this Atma? Why it is going and entering all these bodies, asking them to work in a certain way? And if they have worked in a certain way, according to the way we are looking at Vedanta studies, then ultimately Atma is going to go, and which is moksha, I think. So why is this whole thing happening with this Atma? And the second question, which is like, have we segregated this whole consciousness? Like we say, consciousness is everywhere, right? Then the Atma that is in you, is it different from my Atma, which has come to this body? Or it is like, I am not getting that. Like,
so it is basically like so if I say Atma is the clay, right? It is the principle, the existence principle is basically the clay. Now,
yeah.
the same clay can be made into a pot. It can be made into a plate. Once it's made, it can be destroyed, melted, and made into something else. So the pot is actually not existing at all. It doesn't have any substantial existence. Any weight I feel is basically only the pot. So that is Atma. So it's not it's not like it's being devised. It's not like it's being separated. It's the essence is Atma. Also, you can think of it as electricity. The same electricity can get a fan to function, get a electric chair to function, killing someone, or it can use those things you use to restart someone's heart in an emergency room, right?
Okay, I have a question there only. See, electricity is same. So what I'm saying is, like, you and me both die.
Mhm.
Our atmas are different because electricity is same.
Atmas are not different.
Atma is not different.
Yeah.
Then why that atma that is in me right now? Let's say that atma is the same electricity, which is going into a chair, it is going into a fan.
That is the samanya karanam, like, you know.
Samanya karanam. So the electricity that has come into me, let's say that atma, when I have it leaves my body, right? So it doesn't go back into that electricity. It actually goes to another body and keep finding that body.
Stretch
Which
that example too much, so I'll answer your question.
yeah.
So the electricity is just electricity, right? It's the principle which is can allow things to function. Now, what that electricity does, what reflection of that power we see, will depend on the reflecting medium. So if it is used in a reflecting medium, which is the air conditioner, it will do a cooling function. If it will used in a reflecting medium, which is a heater, it will do a heating function. The electricity itself is the same. It is the reflecting medium which will have us distinguishing it, like perceiving it differently. And that reflecting medium that we're talking about, that is these three bodies and the panchakoshas and all that we will talk about. So of that, Stula Shareeram, the physical body is just one of them, right? So the cause of this, we are saying, is your past karmas. So what particular body has been given right now is purely a result of your past karmas. If you had we all have a basket of karma that we accumulate over time that is happening, right now, like as any actions you do, you're generating new karma again. So from that, based on what was the mix of that good and, we won't say good, punyam and papam. Like based on that punyam and papam mix is what decides the body and what decides which the circumstances and everything. And if you're asking about the cause, so in a way that is the cause, your karma. But I think what you're trying to ask is also why. Now, that is the one unanswerable question.
Okay.
Vedanta. So it's a very difficult one to accept. I've myself asked it many times in the beginning, but after a while, it makes sense. The one thing which satisfied my questioning on this point is when I was told, how can you question and hope to understand that which is enabling you to be able to ask this question? So there's something you have to mull on a little bit, contemplate, let it sink in. And but this is one of the questions with no answer, which will make sense later.
Got that.
Tejashwini, do you like that?
Yeah, so I had a question. The Stula Shareeram, which is the gross body, you had mentioned that it's kind of a vehicle in this life, and we move to a different body when we leave this body. And the body we get into is based on the karma, the circumstances and all of that. Is that part of the Sukshma Shareeram? The karma, is karma associated with the Sukshma Shareeram, Karna Shareeram, one of them?
Yes.
And are those two aspects, like the subtle and the causal bodies, are they eternal? We know Atma is eternal, but are the subtle and causal bodies eternal? And or do they also have a lifespan, maybe a longer lifespan, and or does it end in moksha? I'm just like having questions around that.
It's a good question. And like we said, this text is designed in a way to generate questions which will itself answer very soon. So we will, it's
Okay.
had questions about the Shareeram and the Karana Shareeram, and your questions will be answered in the coming classes.
Okay. Thank you.
It's better to let it unfold that way, because then we'll get into a lot of detail on it.
All right.
So, any other questions?
Ma'am, the question is starting from the answer that you just gave before this, like from that question. So like you said, how can you get the answer of about that, which is letting you to ask that question?
Yeah.
So does that also mean that the gross body, the way it is working, it is dependent on how our atmas are, or atma is using our intellect to work? So who is moving this whole body and the karma that we are doing? Like, who is the last like point where it is starting from? Is it our intellect, or it is knowledge? What is it?
Is the law of karma. It
Law
is,
of karma.
which we will discuss in further classes.
Law of karma.
We'll have to, you're basically studying Advaita, you're listening to Advaita Vedanta, which is non-duality. So what we're ultimately, to give away the climax, what we're ultimately leading up to is saying there is no separate God. There is no, you're not a slave to something else. All there is you, which is Brahman. That's what we are leading up to, but step by step. Right. Great. Thank you, everyone. Let's do the closing prayers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Tat Sat. Thank you. Have a beautiful week. If you have any
Thank you.
further
Thank you so
questions,
much.
feel free to post them in the class.
Thank you, Nanaji.
Yeah. Thank